My name is Hanna, and if you had met me 10 years ago in Berlin, you would have laughed at the idea that I would one day be waking up before dawn to pray. I was born in a small town in Bavaria, but moved to the city for university. I was the typical modern German woman, fiercely independent, career-driven, and entirely secular. To me, religion was something for old people or distant cultures, a set of dusty rules that stopped you from enjoying life. I didn't hate it, I just didn't care about it. My life was structured around logic and efficiency. I worked as a graphic designer for a marketing firm, surrounded by people who valued creativity and freedom above all else. My weekends were spent at art galleries, techno clubs, or hiking in the Alps. But beneath that busy surface, there was a quiet, nagging feeling that something was missing. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was more like a subtle static in the background of my mind, a question I couldn't articulate. Is this all there is? Work, consume, sleep, repeat. The turning point didn't come with a lightning bolt. It started with a cup of coffee. There was a small café near my office in Kreuzberg run by a Syrian family. I went there every morning for my espresso. The owner, a man named Yusuf, was always smiling, despite having lost nearly everything in the war before fleeing to Germany. One rainy Tuesday, the cafe was empty, and Yusuf was reading a small book behind the counter. "What are you reading?" I asked, shaking off my umbrella. "It is the Quran," he said gently. "It gives me peace." I remember scoffing internally. How could a book give peace to a man who had lost his home? But I was polite. I asked him, "Doesn't it just make you angry? To believe in a God that let all that happen to you?" Yusuf looked at me with an intensity I hadn't expected. "God does not promise us an easy life in this world, Hanna. He promises us meaning, and he promises that no tear falls without him knowing." That phrase stuck with me. No tear falls without him knowing. In my world, tears were just biological reactions to stress. Pain was just bad luck. The idea that suffering had meaning was foreign to me. I went home that night and, out of pure curiosity, searched online for a German translation of the Quran. I wanted to see what kind of meaning Yusuf was talking about. I expected to find a book of strict laws and anger. Instead, I opened a random chapter, Surah Ad-Duha. By the morning sunlight and the night when it covers with darkness, your Lord has not taken leave of you, O Muhammad, nor has he detested you. It felt intimate. It felt like a conversation. I closed my laptop, feeling strangely unsettled. I told myself it was just poetic language and went to sleep. But I kept going back. For the next 6 months, I lived a double life. By day, I was the same Hanna. By night, I was researching Islam. I read about the scientific accuracy in the Quran, which appealed to my logical German mind. I read about the rights of women, which shocked me because it contradicted everything the media had told me. I learned that Islam wasn't a new religion, but a continuation of the messages given to Jesus and Moses, figures I knew from my childhood history classes. But the intellectual acceptance wasn't enough. I needed to feel it. One evening, I decided to visit a mosque. There is a large mosque in Cologne that I had driven past 100 times, admiring its architecture, but never stepping inside. I wore a loose scarf over my head, feeling like an imposter, and walked into the women's section during the evening prayer. I sat in the back, watching. The women were of every color: Turkish, African, Arab, German. When the call to prayer began, the adhan, a shiver went down my spine. It wasn't just a sound. It felt like a vibration hitting my chest. Then they stood in lines, shoulder to shoulder. There was no VIP section, no separation based on how expensive their clothes were. They bowed in unison. When they went down into sujud, placing their foreheads on the ground, I saw something I had never seen in my corporate life. Total surrender. In my world, we were taught to always keep our heads high, to never show weakness. Here, the highest act was to lower yourself completely. I started crying. I couldn't stop. It was as if a dam had broken inside me. All the stress of needing to be perfect, independent, and in control just washed away. I realized that I was exhausted from trying to be the god of my own little universe. I wanted to surrender too. A woman noticed me crying. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask if I was Muslim. She just sat beside me and handed me a tissue. "It's okay," she whispered in German. The heart knows its home. That night, I went home and tried to pray. I didn't know the Arabic words, so I just kneeled on my living room rug and spoke in German. "God," I said, "if you are there, guide me. Show me how to live." The hardest part was telling my family and friends. When I finally decided to take my Shahada, the declaration of faith, I knew I would lose people. I told my parents over dinner. My mother went pale. My father slammed his hand on the table. "You are throwing away your freedom," he shouted. "You are an educated German woman. Why do you want to go back to the Middle Ages?" It was painful. I tried to explain that I wasn't choosing oppression. I was choosing discipline. I wasn't rejecting my culture. I was filtering it. I still loved pretzels and punctuality, but I no longer wanted the alcohol and the spiritual emptiness. My friends were just as confused. At work, when I started wearing a modest headscarf, the atmosphere changed. People stopped inviting me to after-work drinks. I saw the whispers. I saw the looks of pity, as if I had been brainwashed. It was lonely. There were days I wanted to take the scarf off just to fit in again, to be normal, Hanna. But then I would remember the feeling of sujud. I would remember the clarity I felt when I fasted during my first Ramadan. The hunger made me grateful for every bite of food, and the discipline made me realize I was not a slave to my desires. I was stronger than my appetite. One specific moment solidified my faith during this lonely time. I was on the subway in Berlin, wearing my hijab. A man started shouting at me, telling me to go back home. I was terrified. I gripped my bag, staring at the floor. Suddenly, an older German woman sitting opposite me stood up. She wasn't Muslim. She looked like a typical grandmother. She looked at the man and said loudly, "Leave her alone. She belongs here just as much as you do." The man grumbled and walked away. The woman looked at me and winked. "Courage, my dear," she said. I realized then that God sends help from unexpected places. I wasn't alone. I had a community of Muslims who welcomed me as a sister, and I had the protection of God who saw my struggles. 3 years have passed since my conversion. My relationship with my parents is healing. They see that I am kinder now. I call them more often. I help them more. My mother recently admitted, "I don't understand your religion, Hanna, but I like the woman it has made you." I am still Hanna. I still work in design. I still hike in the Alps. But the static in my head is gone. The question of, is this all there is, has been answered. I found that peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of connection with the Creator. It was a long journey from the secular streets of Berlin to the prayer mat, but for the first time in my life, I am truly awake.